The role of evil in Macbeth. No critic of Macbeth could have ever escaped from using the word evil, that too, emphasizing it with such a power the word itself had, especially in biblical sense. The very light of Macbeth is but the darkness that broods over the play. If we separate each cell of Macbeth and look through a microscope, every cell would be a hell. The blood and breath of the play is but evil. Besides baking the play with the mark of evil, Shakespeare for the first time shaped evil into a visible form and gave it a role second to none. I quote, "The producer's problem is a very different one and centers upon three protagonists, the two Macbeths and the power which is behind them." Margaret Webster. I quote, "Through Lady Macbeth, we shall be made equally but quite differently aware of the third protagonist." Margaret Webster. Perhaps this is the reason that the current of the play gives us such a bright darkness that clouds the reader with the speed and strangeness of a sudden thunder. I quote, "The overwhelming pressure of preternatural agency urges on the tide of human passion with redoubled force." Gordon Craig. One wonderful thing is that this evil is not showed as a branded villain, but with a romantic beauty and with a positive strength. I quote, "Here we find dark and evil negations endued with a positive strength, successfully opposing things of health and life." Wilsonites. And two, the evil has a decent characterization. Its progress in pace, its charming garments, and its development in dialogue, poetry and prose are highly remarkable. I quote, "Towards the end of the play, the accelerated pace and spreading effect of evil are apparent in every scene. Every sign and signal of this progression may be carried out in a clear theatrical terms." Margaret Webster. Undoubtedly, for these reasons, this play can be called as an experiment in tragedy. And Shakespeare's maturity made him a master to grab hold of grand success. I quote, "Macbeth is in many ways Shakespeare's maturest and most daring experiment in tragedy. For in this play, he set himself to describe the operation of evil in all its manifestations, to define its very nature, to depict its seduction of man, and to show its effect upon all the planes of creation once it has been unleashed by one man's sinful moral choice." Irving Ribner. For this, Shakespeare should have worked a lot, definitely. I quote, "Shakespeare anatomizes evil both in intellectual and emotional terms, using all the devices of poetry, and most notably the image of blood and darkness." Irving Ribner. Ribner further says, I quote, "In Macbeth, all of the elements of the play are governed by an intellectual purpose, a specific statement about the nature of evil and its manner of operation in the world. Anyway, the importance of the role of evil very much recognized by the critics, but the problem is that very little is known about its physical movement and its individual existence, unlike its existence in other plays. What is drawn from this chapter is new, which frames the caricature of the evil and rips out its true qualities and characteristics which are absorbed in other elements and show the true voice and actions of evil. What is found here is that this creating the character in a highly complicated way is the best achievement of Shakespeare in creating dramatic devices. This knowledge of this character is really not perceivable as it is with the 400 years. But one small thing outrightly helpful was the number 6. All through the drama, there are in particular places the current of evil role is clearly smelled, and I doubted that Shakespeare had a definite workout for this character, and I first started counting the dialogues perhaps like a child, and to my surprise, All scenes that enjoy the role of evil are made with 6. Act 1, Scene 1 contains 12 lines divided into 2 sixes. Act 1, Scene 3, before the action, Macbeth doth come. The witches had 12 dialogues, and after that 12 dialogues in action. In this scene, Macbeth had 6 dialogues, and Banquo too had 6 dialogues. With the main brain-dashing scene of Lady Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 5, Lady's first scene, she had only 6 dialogues. And for her top pursuing, Act 1, Scene 8, she had 6 dialogues. Her sleepwalking scene, Act 5, Scene 1, 2, is with only 6 dialogues. In Act 5, Scene 5, where Macbeth hears the death cry of Lady Macbeth and exalts his poetic philosophical splendor for his forgetting tastes of fear, for his way to dusty death, for his brief candle, and for his tale told by an idiot, he had only 6 dialogues. If I assume that the selves of the role of evil are sowed all through these scenes, I have to indulge myself with the major problems of the 400 years created by the critics. Of course, the solution to the major problems also lies besides my success in understanding the role of evil. When I grab hold of the full caricature of the character of evil overall, I find 6 phases of its existence. 1 witches, 2 Lady Macbeth, 3 unruly night, 4 Banquo's murder, 5 Lady Macbeth sleepwalking, 6 the death of Macbeth. In the first 3 phases it grows to the full, and in the last 3 phases it declines and ends. 1 witches, evil in the thinking of Macbeth. For a fact, we just don't know what the witches are. The 400 years great understanding only clarifies that they are not to be known through human perception. But one thing should be taken for sure is that our critics are not worthless. They have excavated the maximum. And because the secret of the witches does not lie in the particles of the witches at all, they are not known. Besides telling us the true material of the vanishing witches, everything is clearly told. Lamb had exact details of them. I quote, Shakespeare witches have no children and seems to have no parents, no beginning or ending, no human passions or relations. To heighten their mystery, they have no names. Lamb. Yes, the mystery is such. Magin even suggested us so mysterious. I quote, There were no such beings as the Weird Sisters. The voice that told him he should be king was that of his own ambition. They are the personified suggestions of his mind. Magin. When we see the witches vanishing, why can't we give ear to such a voice of Magin? The voice that contains some truth. Anyway, the fact is that, as told by Cowden Clarke, I quote, The witches are not subordinate characters but prime movers. Cowden Clarke. We accept. And to let us believe in the power of Shakespeare and not try to hasten to conclude as many did without broad understanding. Many had done so, and the broad thinking even resulted in simplifying the task. Of course, with the basic truths such as, I quote, The witches in Macbeth remind us that history of our race and our social medium have created forces of good and evil independent of the individual's will. And then we have to conclude as Macho did. I quote, We say the deeds disintegrating a once noble character so that the drama is not external but internal in Macbeth's soul. Even though this type of understanding is nowhere less than prudent, our material quest for the truth, as it was with Shakespeare's creation, could not be satisfied. We know that we have to know something which could be known after all. We know witches in general, and the witches presented by many writers. But how is it our witches vanish? If Shakespeare was not fundamentally wrong, these should be perhaps great creations of Shakespeare. Many critics were puzzled with these creatures. I quote, They play more than any other is wrapped in darkness. For only in darkness one can mistake and purchase evil for good. Shakespeare had to leave the witches vague and the extent of their influence indeterminate. The very soul of horror lies in the vague and impalpable. Queller Koch. Season has a daring and decent conclusion. I quote. At the theatre, romantic themes were clothed in the garb of reality. Example, the witches in Macbeth. A far better explanation is found with Armitage Brown. I quote, the more imaginative the work, the more knowledge is needed. The Wade sisters surpass Macbeth. They have all evil that is in ourselves and also superhuman power. Earthly et unearthly agent, just within the wedge of disgustful abhorrence, never to offend, but to delight, than to create Macbeth. Yes, these creatures only created Macbeth. Or in Macbeth they are created to create a Macbeth scene in the play. But what is clearly seen is, I quote, the witches personify temptation, but do not force Macbeth. Stepper. I quote, the witches do not act on Macbeth against his will. They are not ancient fate. They play the part the dreams play in our classic tragedies. Alfred Majeris. I quote, in Macbeth the power of the Wade sisters depend on that which in a man's soul has affinities for that power. Hiram Carson. I quote, the witches do not hate Macbeth personally. They are the purity of sin incarnate. They represent the mysterious action and reaction between evil mind and external nature. N.H. Hudson. All is well, but what are they, and with what exact stuff Shakespeare had made them that they might vanish, even vanish? And how they have such a close relation with Macbeth that the first words of Macbeth are but what they conclude? Are they mere thoughts of Macbeth, the first thoughts of ambition or evil? If so, why such importance should be given to those thoughts? If Macbeth is Saturn, Saturn's first thoughts of ambition are the most important so far as the evil is concerned. Because in the universe, those thoughts are the first of their kind. Before that, no such thought of rebellion was ever imagined. As Dover Wilson has put it, the witches are the incarnation of evil in the universe. All the more effective dramatically that their nature is never defined. The witches were thought of as the convenient dramatic symbols of evil. Yes, the first thoughts of Saturn were so. Then the first scene should be in a cell or a small place in the brain of Saturn or Macbeth. The place of the first scene is a deserted place. Where? On the earth or in the space or somewhere else? Perhaps in the brain. That too in such a place where there were never any thought of evil arose. For the next witch scene, the place is on a heath. The first scene too is as short as the first thoughts taken place in the mind. They are as simple as the moment of the thoughts strolling in the space of brain cells. But the entrance of the thoughts is strange, because the heart is hit by the thought of evil. Strange winds, darkness, thunder and lightning all show the power of such a strange thought. The short duration of the first scene has been in the looks of scholarship not positively, for it has displayed the one powerful effect of the drama: fair is foul and foul is fair. The line has got the tremendous power to substitute the title. The Wade sisters, says Gervinus, are simply the embodiment of inward temptation. I quote, they are the shadowy, obscure, and fearfully anomalous of physical nature, elemental avengers without sex or kin. Coleridge. I quote, every sign and signal of this progression may be carried out in clear theatrical terms, yet it is only in the witches that the evil force is ever actually incarnate, and they present us with the most difficult problem in the play. Margaret Webster. I quote, they, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, are drunk with the force of these spirits, though unaware of their presence. Gordon Craig. I quote, the witches simply materialize the ambition in Macbeth's heart. Max J. Wolfe. They came from a thunder and lightning. Their first expression is, where shall we three meet again? The struggle for existence, which is a natural phenomenon. It is the voice of evil, which is like a waterless sea, and now it had a very little place in the brain of Macbeth. Its first thought for its survival. One important thing is that the words of three witches seems to be that of one person, or of a single brain and not of three brains. As it is with the thinking, within a few seconds there took a change. A change in the utmost reversal. Fair is foul and foul is fair. In just one line, the nature and meaning of the evil is shown. This is all just what happened in the mind of Macbeth within a few seconds. And now, continuing the thinking, Macbeth has come to the stage. His first words are but what his thoughts had concluded. So foul and fair a day I have not seen. In fact, this is the beginning of the play. Some critics are also of the opinion with due confidence. It has been suggested by Mr. Strutt that the play should properly begin here, Act 1, Scene 335 line, and indeed all that has preceded might be well omitted. Ross and Angus express everything material that is contained in the third scene. And as Macbeth is the great object of the witches, all that we hear of the sailor and his wife is rather ludicrous and impertinent than Solomon and material. I strongly suspect it is spurious. When Macbeth heard the witches, it seems through his actions and feelings as if he is hearing what his heart says. Looks like a man in his hallucinations, hypnotized by his strange thinking. Naturally, ambitious thinking very immediately proceeds in hoping the impossible. And two, the habitual and natural movements and thinking process even with mannerism changes with a clearly seen change. Perhaps the heartbeat also changes. Why not? Everything changes as thinking changes. It is wisely told by Shakespeare, foul is fair and fair is foul. Noble Macbeth is not what this Macbeth is. We heard of noble Macbeth and now we see the most depraved Macbeth. A liar is he to say imperfect speakers, and in his heart he said perfect report. Strangely, the witches vanished. I don't think Shakespeare had enough equipment to show the vanishing witches when he staged the play. Anyhow, if Shakespeare had not made the witches vanish, there would not be any way for my interpretation. In this phase of the evil, it is clear that Macbeth in his mind had the concrete idea of becoming the king. The vaulting ambition crept into his mind. Now he writes the letter to his dearest partner, and in Lady Macbeth we see the second phase of the workout of the evil. Second phase, Lady Macbeth. By the time the witches vanish, the evil took possession of the dull brain of Macbeth. Now, according to my understanding, Shakespeare, to show the presence of the evil very clearly and to amplify the dramatic effect, created the dull brain of Macbeth as Lady Macbeth, or we may take it for granted, Lady Macbeth played the role of evil, which already took possession of Macbeth's mind. The link to the passing of the evil current is made through the letter. If the witches vanish there in the previous scene, here we see themselves strongly placed in Lady Macbeth. Critics have almost explained all the facts about my interpretation. I quote, her solid, substantial flesh and blood display of passions contrasts with the cold, abstracted, servile malignity of the witches. And the witches are unreal, abortive, half-existence. William Hazlitt. I quote, Shakespeare characters are often but weak beings. Lady Macbeth is perhaps the weakest of them all. And if that is the beauty, and unmistakably it is a great beauty, and it is the beauty of the disease and not the supreme beauty. Gordon Craig. The disease is not hers, but Macbeth's. The disease named evil. And the reading of the letter, I quote, as she, Mrs. Siddons, was about to pronounce the word vanished and passed, drew a short breath. Her whole frame was disturbed. She threw her fine eyes upward and exclaimed, vanished, with a wild force. which showed that the whole spirit of the temptation had shrunk into her soul. The "Hail King that shall be" was the winding up of the spell. It was pronounced with the grandeur of one already by anticipation a queen. The latter undoubtedly had its great importance, even though its contents are not at all that strange to move her to such an extremity. The true importance and what it really contained was nowhere understood by people of any sort or great critics, but clearly known through the words of her maidservant. I quote, "Since His Majesty went into the field, I have seen her rise from her bed, threw her nightgown upon her, unlock the closet, take forth paper, fold it, write upon it, read it, afterwards seal it, and again return to bed. At all this while in a most fast sleep. The terror is what the letter contains. This is the great bond Macbeth had made," confirmed his evil thought with himself. Here in this play with the dramatic device of Shakespeare, by showing vividly how the evil in a man works through the struggle of the divine nature of man with that of filthy ambition. Besides the witches, before Lady Macbeth plunges into the full-fledged role of evil, the letter is what embodied the total existence of evil. I just wonder about a silly thing, how Vary or Mid has fixed the letter in 12 lines prose. When she completes reading the letter, the connection is made, and the shock and the power of evil can be well absorbed by her. I quote, "When she had finished reading the letter and commenced her invocation to the spirits of evil, she snooked forth the opening words, until the voice changed almost to the hissing of a serpent, and on it rose to the swelling dispassion of all organ. Her eyes became luminous with infernal fire, her stately figure expanded, her white hands clutched her ample bosom, as if she would there and then have unsexed herself and turned her woman's milk for gall. And it really required but little stretch of imagination to conceive that the dunnest smoke of hell would burst forth and envision her there and then. All is doubtful as it is with the critics of 4 centuries. Not believable at all. If such a letter alone could change her so, we could imagine what sort of lady she could be, and it would be impossible for her to keep all the way to this time so calm and not to do ugly acts in her career. And such deeds would have no way kept her to be called "my dearest partner of greatness" by Macbeth, and to Macbeth to be called noble. All indicates a definite starting of evil at a stretch, and two working so rapidly and strangely. All this gave way to my interpreting Macbeth as Satan. No doubt, Lady Macbeth is never understood except for some indications about her character. Even the relation between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth is a mystery. I quote, "Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse. Shake my fell purpose, nor keep pace between the effect and it. Come to my woman's breast, and take my milk for gall. And murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief, come thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold." If Lady Macbeth really wants to unsex herself or call for the aid of some spirits, she need not read out so many lines alone in the room. She could just concentrate for a moment and penetrate her eyes and mind into the areas eyes can't see or the mind can't think, and could confirm her as if she had changed to a devil. The lines she reads are not the sort of lines to be read but thought. Even they look as if the continuity of Macbeth's thinking after he had made himself a hypocrite, the vanishing of the witches. Of course, it is a drama. Unless the characters improve with their language, we won't pay money. The thing that should be observed is that all through these improbable lines, the transforming of Lady Macbeth into a fiend is done. In fact, it was the struggle of Shakespeare better than Lady Macbeth to create the devil or evil as if we should believe it and then start her network. Anyway, she got the strength as she and Shakespeare wished. Macbeth too has come onto the stage dramatically to keep alive her evil kick and support Shakespeare's creation. The words of the witches echo in Lady Macbeth. Great Glamis, worthy Cawdor, greater than both, by the all hail hereafter. And in another phase of evil, Macbeth himself engages in some significant echoing. Glamis hath murdered sleep, and therefore Cawdor shall sleep no more. Macbeth shall sleep no more. Anyway, it should all have happened in Macbeth only. Perhaps this is the dramatization of Satan's fall, which is not so clearly written in the Bible, and naturally a true source of great drama, which John Milton too had utilized. Now the addressing of Lady Macbeth as witches did indicate the relation of the witches and Lady Macbeth. Lady Macbeth is the better shape of the witches, or the developed state of the witches from that of thinking to action. I quote, she would degenerate herself like sisters. Like the sisters, she would be an instrument of darkness, creature of a hellish atmosphere, fill the air. She would make permanent the prediction of the sunset made by the third witch, Herbert Orcarson Jr. Oh, never shall sun that morrow see. The power of evil is clearly seen in the great pursuit of Lady Macbeth. I quote, here for the first time, woman becomes active tragic force. Lady Macbeth is peerless. Professor C.H. Hadford. I quote, she looks upon him as a product of her own creation. Professor George Strainsbury. Without Lady Macbeth and her devilish pursuit, the murder of Duncan would have not taken place. I quote, in one scene, the whole action of the play is the outcome of her insistence on his playing the role of a man. D.W. Harding. In fact, it is more than the role of a man. She herself played the devil's role. In the great evil feasting scene, Act 1, Scene 7, Macbeth's meek and deepest heart with that of his soul is clearly seen, and his childlike and hypnotized simple state of his being would simply arouse pity in the heart of any cruel being in the world, but not Lady Macbeth, the embodiment of evil. She dominates outrightly, and her struggle is to entirely bend her victim to the full, and no smallest sympathy or the thought of pity was found in her. Yet she could study his many different moments of his thinking, speaking, and feeling, and could even work out very immediately like a genius to attack violently to the extent of gripping him. I particularly feel the balance of the two sides of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth is as if two extremely different ideas engaged in a conflict to fight each other. Anyway, cursed be the one who cannot taste the extraordinary power of the dark spirits in Lady Macbeth in this particular conversation. Of course, even the walls and the curtains of the theatres all through the world tasted to the full the entrance of Lady Macbeth. She enters when Macbeth's personal struggle fades away, and when his vaulting ambition cannot give him sufficient strength. It should be as if she is watching secretly. Ridiculous. And comes when he has no spur, or she being the evil itself that has surrounded him in the air, and Lady Macbeth being the physical computer, comes when he needs, or when she needs to educate him I have no spur, is the only line which is just like a thread of hair, and the nobleness and worthiness of the heart of Macbeth are like a huge mountain which is plucked out by the thread of hair with the strength of evil. Why have you left the chamber? Is like the voice of a master to his slave. Yet in the first two words some deep relation is found in the sounds. Know you not he has? The exclamation indicates that she has prepared to impose her doctrine by force, and the tone she should insist is here found in the unconcerned insistence of the exclamation. Perhaps the dark evil clouds are surrounding his soul very quickly. Whether because Macbeth understands her plan, or as the part of his continuity of his breakdown, he with a submissive and deeply frank tone shows her his confirmation. We will proceed no further in this business. I view it as the last and least prayer of the vanishing good side. After this line, he reads 4 more lines to which Lady Macbeth patiently waits. It would be a bit difficult to know why Lady gave so much time to Macbeth after the words, proceed no further in this business. Perhaps the encroaching evil is watching the vanishing of the least good in Macbeth. When she opens her mouth, she sets a stumbling block to the free floating of his heart's sweetest rivers of truth and weakness. Was the hope drunk? And she continues with such hissing and shrieking sounds, which are like wounds, and would not let his mind work. The area her intellect covers to slaughter Macbeth's conscience has been discussed by many critics. Macbeth he is like a slave. Now in this situation, the power of truth or the divinity with which man is made struggles to keep alive. Hence he conclude, he only had but the sweetest and weakest words, Prithee peace. The thread of hair, the link between good Macbeth and evil Macbeth, Lady, passes the evil current and pollutes the good Macbeth's least good. The important thing to be noted is that there is something strange. I dare do all that may become a man who does no more is none. Perhaps it is against God they plot. But the one pursues Macbeth, the beast, which got birth in the mind of Macbeth, is so strong that it has captured him because the two are but the two sides of Macbeth. Now the evil opens her mouth full wide as the gates of hell and shows her nature. I have given suck, and know how tender it is to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you. The closest picture of the costliest bliss of a woman, the babe that milks me, my nipple from his boneless gums, plucked and dashed the brains out. It is not simply the nature of evil Shakespeare shows here. Yes, the evil is in its climax, and the struggle to hold her victim is fully on, and the intellect and the devices used to dash the brains of Macbeth is exactly of the worth of Shakespeare himself as a dramatist. She got it. Dashed the brains of Macbeth. We just don't know from where the words have come out, but have come out from Macbeth. If we should fail, but not with so much confidence. But Lady Macbeth could grasp the exact state of Macbeth even before the words float into the air. Perhaps happy with her victim, she turns it to a less meaningful message. In her reaction, though she has got everything she needs, the one thing is that she could conclude the phase. That's all. So now, teaches him as a master vehemently abusing his ignorant slave, and then realizing his slave's foolishness, teaches him patiently. Macbeth saying, bring forth man children only, indicates Macbeth's recognizing the domination of Lady Macbeth and his dependence, and also shows that he is trying to show himself as a man, not the simple one. An artificial utterance. It is peculiar, Lady Macbeth says, make our griefs and clamour roar. It is as if a grandmother telling a tale to the slumbering baby, which nods. She purely well knew that he is settled. I am settled and bent up. In fact, the role of evil has got settled by bending up the noble soul. Third phase, the night. The night is remarkable as any other remarkable thing in the drama. But what exactly has happened is to be known. Within the volume of time I have seen, hours dreadful and things strange, but that sore night hath trifled former knowing. It clearly explains that the night is not like any other night all through the volume of time. Why it was so? Thou seest heavens as troubled with man's act. How it was? By the clock it is day, and at dark night strangles the travelling lamp. It is night's predominance, or the day's shame. The darkness does the face of the earth and tomb when living light should kiss it. Old man, it is unreal, even like the deed that is done. On Tuesday last, a falcon, towering in her pride of place, was by a mousing owl hacked at and killed. Ross and Duncan's horses, turned wild in nature, broke their stalls, flung out. It is said they ate each other. Shakespeare did his best by painting the night with as much strangeness as ever possible. There should be some exclusive reason for all this extremity of the night. The intensity that is felt in the storm of the night is as equal as the tone and outright dominance of Lady Macbeth and the hidden powers of the witches. Is it the role of evil that does all this? So what about Lady Macbeth, who really took the role of evil and bent Macbeth to the deed? After Macbeth got settled and bent up, Lady Macbeth left him, and there is still time that the full of milk heart of Macbeth may change his mind. And as the evil keeping the role with full strength of its power and the power of Shakespeare's wisdom with that of the science of human behavior, Shakespeare or the evil in no circumstances leave Macbeth alone. If so, what about the Lady Macbeth who really took the role of evil and bent Macbeth to the deed? After Macbeth got settled and bent up, Lady Macbeth left him. And there is still time that the full of milk heart of Macbeth may change his mind. And as the evil keeping the role with full strength of its power and the power of Shakespeare's wisdom with that of the science of human behavior, Shakespeare or evil in no circumstances leave Macbeth alone. Then, does evil enter into the night, leaving Lady Macbeth? Perhaps so. After the scene of pursuit, Lady Macbeth is totally different. Totally different. She needs to drink to keep herself with fire. She can no more dash the brains out. The one current that gave her the strength has gone. I quote, "There is some difficulty about Lady Macbeth's character, though not in the sense of any doubt of Shakespeare's design. Her behavior before and after the deed contradicts the psychological law of unchangeableness and fixity which Shakespeare usually maintains. It is not psychological and understandable effect, but something magical and demonical that is attributed to conscience." Gustav Rummelin. The fact is that the role of evil was designed like that by Shakespeare. Now, the night which plays the role of evil pursues Macbeth, as Lady Macbeth did, as Banquo exists, and Macbeth stands alone. Immediately the work of the evil starts that he might not get a chance to once again check himself. The vision of the dagger continues, stealing away his concentration. "I see thee still, and on the blade, and John, gouts of blood, which was not so before." If it continues such a long time as Macbeth reads full 15 lines, and his mind turns from the effect of the air-drawn dagger, there is no such thing. His attention is turned to another image of the night. Now over the one half-world, nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abused. The curtained sleep, witchcraft celebrates, pale Hecate offerings, and withered murder, alarmed by his sentinel, the wolf, whose howls his watch, thus with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides, towards his design, moves like a ghost. The atmosphere continues 6 more lines till the bell rings. Great disturbance is clearly felt in the night. There is a murderous storm whirling in the night, particularly around Macbeth, which imposes on him a particular effect that he might keep the fire in him and move with the bell. It is a sorry night, rough night, and the night has been unruly. Even nature seems dead. Chimneys were blown down, strange screams of death, and lamentations heard in the air. Prophecies with terrible accents are heard. The earth was feverish and did shake. We hear the owl scream and the cricket cry. Shakespeare is in no way prudent to dump all dirty descriptions of the night, and the visual effect of the supernatural is clearly felt by any common reader. Shakespeare should have clearly divided the role of evil as I did. Otherwise, there would not be so much clarity and liveliness in pulling the time with such a clear process of balanced development. The fact is that the obscure bird evil clamored the livelong night. As the deed is done, confusion evil now hath made his masterpiece. And there is a knocking indeed which has embodied with every dread of this darkness, and knocks at every moment on the heart of Macbeth. The evil has got its throne in the soul of Macbeth and got full life. Now Macbeth is but the puppet of evil. All his deeds are of evil. Further, his works are seen, how he spoils the good in the world. Fourth phase, Banquo's murder. Shakespeare gave us little scope to separate evil Macbeth from noble Macbeth. Noble Macbeth's blessed life died an hour before at the time of the deed. Macbeth, had I but died an hour before this chance, I had lived a blessed time. For from this instant there is nothing serious in mortality. All is but toys. Renown and grace is dead. The wine of life is drawn, and the mere lease is left this vault to brag of. This is the full end of the story of noble Macbeth, because the evil took the toy of Macbeth and wear his flesh and blood as hers. Now the full role of evil has come into existence and has become king, which means the area of control. But here, now, in this phase, the evil Macbeth had serious problems with Banquo because our fears in Banquo stick deep, and in his royalty of nature reigns that which would be feared. It is much he dares, and to the dauntless temper of his mind he hath a wisdom that doth guide his valour to act in safety. There is none but he, whose being I do fear, and under him my genius is rebuked, as it is said. No doubt this is something very serious, and the evil in Macbeth once again starts its work. Now Macbeth, as Lady Macbeth did, starts the hellish spells. Come sailing night, scrap up the tender eye of pitiful day, and with thy bloody and invisible hand cancel and tear to pieces that great bond which keeps me pale. And everything comes immediately. Light thickens, and the crow makes wing to the rooky wood. Good things of day begin to droop and rouse, while night's black agents to their prey do rouse. Thou marvelest at my words, but hold thee still. Things bad begin, make strong themselves by ill. Banquo is murdered as was planned, with 20 trenched gashes on his head, the least death to nature. But what precedes is the strangest of all things, Macbeth. Blood hath been shed ere now in the olden times, ere a human statute purged the gentle wheel. And since too, murders have been performed, too terrible for the ears. The times have been that when the brains were out, the man would die, and there an end. But now they rise again, with 20 mortal murders on their crowns, and push us from our stools. This is more strange than such a murder is. This is that which might appeal the devil, Macbeth. This is what the defeat of Macbeth is, of the evil, and he cannot dare look on that. And too, Banquo seems to be the one whom Macbeth cannot challenge or face. So say, take any shape but that. This shows that some power is in Banquo which has power over evil. Can such things be and overcome us like a summer cloud without our special wonder? Using the word such things indicates not only the power of Banquo but some other things that are revealed here. Macbeth. It will have blood, they say. Blood will have blood. Stones have been known to move and trees to speak. Augurs and understood relations have by magpies and cows and rooks brought forth the secretest man of blood. It looks like the predictions about the coming judgment of the sinners. And it will have blood, they say. They are not the witches, no doubt. But who else? We can't find them. What all we can perceive is that the evil had clear knowledge about some other things which are not at all noted here anywhere in the play. The particular deserted state of Macbeth should be about the doom of the evil. In the end of the scene, we had a chance to once again hear reliable Macbeth, not evil Macbeth. Some facts, Macbeth. Come, we will to sleep. My strange and self-abuse is the initiate fear that wants hard use. These are not the words that came out of the center of Macbeth as always is, but looks like as if a man speaks to another man to keep his ego. He should have felt shameful for his utter shattering in fear before his wife. I don't think these two lines suit the situation, but the third line carries better weight. We are but young indeed. He should have realized the nothingness of his greatest effort to do such a deed and to become the king. It indicates Macbeth's knowledge of good deeds of fruitfulness. He too realizes the magnanimity of a human being, which he sold to the devil. The three lines are what should be read by the chorus, and Shakespeare, in fact, wrote as a commentator, and the liberty by adding to the portion of Macbeth. Anyway, there is little scope that these lines might be uttered by Macbeth in an unconscious state. In this phase, we see this strange shock to the evil. It continues, spoiling the whole creation on a large scale until we come to the sleepwalking scene of Lady Macbeth. Fifth phase, sleepwalking, first death. As we read lines of deepest suffering all through the drama, here too we see some more lines of similar stuff. But what differs in the particular scene is that it has surpassed in majesty and in all other aspects of drama. And too it had a possible best place in literature. Not only that, but in its contents, it conceals so many mysterious matters. It produces the same effect to all grades of people. When noble Macbeth first opened his mouth, it was clearly unknown to us that he was not noble, because he had seen the first foul day which was fair to him. And immediately the thought of murder starts its gallop and shakes so my single state of man. And even though the evil, without rest, shakes him, he took the bestial decision, come what may. But his dramatic hot discussions of rationality could change his mind. We will proceed no further in this business. And it got settled and bent up by the unusual hypnotizing power of Lady Macbeth, and with the visions of the night, with a decent audio system, completes the date. Then starts a hammering of an awkward knocking in the hearts and ribs, splitting the blood of his body and his body. No sleep, the terror of blood, and all was like that. Yet Macbeth manages to play dramas of puzzling sort to prove his innocence. 2. Plans and executes more murders and reads more lines about his awkward state and his defeated conditions, becomes a coward of an exceptional stature. After all, the system had been changed by some other system, and as usual, which is usually unusual, Macbeth sinks beyond from his former sunken states into even deeper states. Because there is a limit for anything, it happened impossible for Shakespeare to produce the effect of the more depraved state of Macbeth. So he used Lady Macbeth here to achieve the impossible. In fact, the fit we find in Macbeth from the beginning of the play, and here the fit is costliest. Made with the sophisticated stuff of Shakespeare's long-time possession of dramatic excellencies. Lady Macbeth, in her first great character, in fact had a less character, less physique, less voice, all less. She was a standby to Macbeth. Whenever Shakespeare cannot guide and control Macbeth to produce the expected effect, he places Lady Macbeth. And Lady Macbeth plays the crucial role and gives us a chance to see and hear of something grandest in first-class literature. Even this is what Shakespeare wanted and worked out. A grand dramatic device. She has been always used to bear the worst and to produce the best effect out of the worst. Here, as it is her death scene, undoubtedly the matter should be of such importance, like an end of which includes some revelations of the unknown things. Before I start my study into the scene, an observation of the situation of the other side, good side, would be helpful. The power is ready. Macbeth is ripe for shaking, and the powers above put on their instrument. All through this scene, the lady is nameless. Who is responsible for all sins, perhaps? Her name included in the name of Macbeth. This aspect is discussed in the 3rd chapter. Undoubtedly, this is the punishment for what she evil has done, and the punishment is imposed by the powers above, for which act she is punished or clearly uttered by the lady. 1. Writing the letter. Since His Majesty went into the field, I have seen her rise from her bed, throw her nightgown upon her, unlock the closet, take forth the paper, fold it, write upon it, read it, afterwards seal it, and again return to bed. At all this while in a most fast sleep. This is, so far as our knowledge is concerned, the act of Macbeth. If it is a reminiscence of the letter she received, she only should have uttered some words as she would do in case of Lady Macbeth. Here in this scene, irrespective of individuals' deeds, the deeds of the evil are represented, which we may assume that the role of evil or the deeds of evil are subjected to judgment, and the embodiment of all evil, Lady Macbeth, which is the spoiled brain of Macbeth, suffer. 2. Washing hands. It is an accustomed action with her to see thus washing her hands. I have known her continue in this a quarter of an hour. This too was the act of Macbeth, which embodies the filth of the murder. 3. The sight. And who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him? This is perhaps the hardest thing that shook both hearts. 4. Lady Macduff's murder. The Thane of Fife had a wife. Where is she now? Lady Macbeth knew that she was murdered, but because Lady Macduff symbolizes the church, the murder indicates the persecution of Christians. She says, where is she now? Which means in what state those meek people are living. And these feelings should have hurt Lady Macbeth the most. 5. Banquo's murder. I tell you again, Banquo is buried. He cannot come out of his grave. How does she know? The only way to answer is that Lady Macbeth played the role of evil, and all the acts of evil are here uttered with a touch of first-hand expression, and the powers above execute judgment. And when the role of evil itself goes into derision, all acts of evil are uttered, by which we know that she suffered the worst. 6. Knocking. To bed, there is knocking at the gate. Come, 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 give me your hand. What is done cannot be undone. To bed. This feeling equals the feelings of both Macbeths after the deed. The strongest piece of struggle was when Macbeth uttered the impossible words, Wake Duncan with thy knocking, I would thou couldest. This is clearly summed up. What is done cannot be undone. In fact, these are the inner words of Macbeth when he said, Wake Duncan. These are all the problems or sins of the evil-possessed mind of Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, and are now judged by the powers above, has come to such a terrible state as the mind and the evil are annihilated. So, when Macbeth hears the death cry, he has no such brain as to produce some lines of dramatic sorrow. He lost his brain, and what is left is the way to dusty death, to his walking shadow. 6th phase. The death of Macbeth, second death. The grand fall of the evil was in the sleepwalking scene, and what is left to be seen is but the execution of the perturbation, mere materialistic massacre of the caricature walking shadow of Macbeth. This Macbeth, who was always fixed very much in the claws of fear, now, I have almost forgot the taste of fear. The time has been, my senses would have cooled to hear a night shriek, and my fell hair as life were in it. I have supped full with horror, direness familiar to my slaughterous thoughts. Cannot one stir me? Wherefore was that cry? Satan says, the queen, my lord, is dead. But the fact is that it is the death of what is just discussed. Something which is as sensitive as Lady Macbeth has vanished from Macbeth. The death of Lady Macbeth. Even we can simply say the terrible thinking was in the mind of Lady Macbeth just before she died. That is the thinking of Macbeth. We may deliberately call this device as the killing of the half of Macbeth. Now, with this half-death, he has got little more knowledge of greater things of himself. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. Today is lost in which he lives. For a long time, the duration of the play, we lived with a lot of fear. It was in his todays. Now in this particular juncture, the tomorrows are philosophically uttered. It had only one meaning, that all tomorrows should be seen by him, which play the extreme opposite of what time gives to living things, because the flesh and blood only goes into derision by death, which has not yet blessed Macbeth to end himself. With the end of his thinking ends lively things of his heart, soul and senses. This knowledge he has got by losing his half-life and helped him in gaining little more knowledge of the past that the yesterdays have lighted fools to the way to dusty death. Lady Macbeth was asking in fear and clarity, "Out, damned spot, out, I say!" And it happened so. Now Macbeth is begging without fear and feeling of any sort. Out, out, brave candle! Because though Lady Macbeth died, the candle of hers, Macbeth, has not yet put off. The walking shadow, sleepwalker, has yet been moving on some unseen screen of his dead mind. What would anybody call this sort of ridiculous story and its writer? We may praise because we know less than Macbeth knows. But for Macbeth, it is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. But one aspect astonishes us, and that is Macbeth's future course of action. He would not withdraw from his deeds. Neither has he submitted himself to the powers that are worthy and deserve to rule. He shows us what tomorrows he had, yet he strives to safeguard them. For that he sends more horses to the field. When we come to know him a hypocrite, another puzzle stands before us. They have tied me to a stake, I can't fly, but bear like I must fight the course. These are the words of the evil which has won Macbeth and became king. And it is clear that they who had power to tie him so much that he had no power or freedom to taste his freedom. Besides that, one other aspect of the very drama is observed here in they predetermining the course of Macbeth. It was all pre-planned, as was written in the book of Revelations in the Bible, or as the witches even predicted earlier, or as all the events of Macbeth are prophesied. One major aspect to be discussed is Macbeth has lost his free will, which is in fact impossible with the human beings. This is only possible with the powers from above in destructing the inferior evil as was planned by the Creator. Another major aspect is that no human being had any power to harm Macbeth, because he is not human. He is evil. So only the none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. And the major aspect to be fulfilled by the powers above to vanquish Macbeth is that the great Birnam wood to high Dunsinane and Hill shall come against him. All is the network of God or the powers above to end evil and its system.